Good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you to our Selling or Exiting Your Business webinar. We appreciate all of you taking the time to get registered for this today. And hopefully the information that we provide to you on this will help you as I will go through the list and looking at those who have pre-registered for this, recognize a lot of names there and see that as many of us have visited in the past, this is definitely something that is top of mind for many of you in your businesses and trying to make those right decisions on what to do as we look towards the future on this. So anyway, but we appreciate all of you registering, those who are in our service area and those who are outside of our service area. We do appreciate you coming and being a part of this with us today. So as always, we want to invite any questions that you might have during the course of this seminar. I will try and get to those as is best for this seminar. But we do want to make sure that we get all those answers before we wrap all of this up. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat bar as we go through that. We've also muted everybody as part of that, just to keep the distractions down as part of that. But if you do have a question you would like to ask, either put that there or feel free to unmute yourself and be able to ask that within the seminar itself. So anyway, but again, we do welcome you to this seminar. My name is Kevin Peck. I'm the Center Director for the Eastern Arizona College Small Business Development Center, located here in the southeastern part of the state. Many of you might know us, but for those who don't know who we are funded through a grant from the Small Business Administration and also by our host institution. Our main role that we do here is that we provide no-cost business counseling to those who are already in business and those who may just be starting. And of course, those of you who are participating in this seminar today, those who are looking at exiting their business, we provide counseling and service to you as well during that. So as we finish up on this seminar today, if you do need more help and assistance as you go through these next steps of exiting your business, please let us know. We'd be more than happy to do that. And of course, as you're aware, we do offer these no-cost, low-cost classes and seminars, trainings, webinars, seminars to try and help educate and inform business owners on the latest trends in industry, what's going on, what's happening within your industry, what are some new ways of marketing or growing your business. Now, we are a part of 10 different centers around our state here in Arizona. We do have a number of other locations. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. But I share that with you to let you know that if we don't have the answers here within our center itself, we do have about 60 people throughout the state of Arizona here and throughout the nation that we can get in contact with to try and find the best expertise for you and what will be of most benefit to your business. Now, as I mentioned, we do have other centers around the nation. The SBDC, America's SBDC, is a nationwide network of about 1,100 centers. We have about 4,500 full-time counselors within that network, and annually, we serve roughly a little over 750,000 businesses as part of this program. Now, here, as I mentioned, here in the state of Arizona, we do have 10 different what we call lead centers, the host centers or the host institutions. But within the network, we do have 26 different locations throughout the state. We literally cover every corner of the state of Arizona. So if any of you are in those remote areas, please let us know so we can reach out to you and get the assistance that you need as part of that. We also have a sister program called PTAC. That stands for Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. They are a sister program to us. Their main responsibility is to provide businesses with the assistance and help needed to find contracting opportunities with the federal government, state government, local governments, if required as part of that. So they're looking to try and find more ways to get small business into government contracting as part of that. So if you think that you have a business that might be in that realm, or not sure if your business is in that area, please get in contact with us. We'd be happy to reach out to PTAC and to try and find what those opportunities might be for you and your business. Now, we do have another organization that we have just partnered with this year in 2019. And that is the Arizona Commerce Authority. The Arizona Commerce Authority, which we're super excited about this new partnership. The Arizona Commerce Authority is the economic development organization for the state. They are tasked with the job of growing and strengthening Arizona's economy. Now, where SBDCs focus mostly on growing businesses in Arizona, creating jobs, creating more businesses, the ACA has that same responsibility over those two areas, but they also recruit out-of-state companies who may be wanting to expand their operations in Arizona. And so they've made a really strong commitment, especially to our rural aspect of Arizona, to try and reach out to that part of the state. We've now become an integral part of that with them. And so we're happy to get you more information about the ACA and all that they do. They have a large number of programs that most small businesses in the state of Arizona would benefit from. And we'd be happy to provide more information to you about them. So anyway, we want to welcome the ACA, the Arizona Commerce Authority, to our organization and to the state as we work here in the rural parts of the state, and looking forward to the things that we're going to be able to accomplish as part of that. All right, so all housekeeping aside, you are all here today to learn more about how to exit your business. And so again, we appreciate you taking the time to be here as part of that. I thought I'd share some information for you today just to kind of give you a state of where are we at with business sales overall as a nation, kind of what's going on. Is this a good time for me to be exiting my business? Is it a good time for me to be trying to sell my business? If you'll notice here, according to BizBuySell, you'll notice in 2018, we had a record number of small business sales or small business transactions occurred during the course of 2018. If you look there at 2019, you'll notice our numbers are down just a little bit. But the interesting thing to look at here is, as we look at what finished up in 2017 and what happened in 2018, represents the largest one-year growth year over year since 2013. So we're seeing a big trend going upwards right now in the sales of businesses. Now you'll notice that our transactions in 2019 have slipped a little bit. The last quarter of 2018 and 2019 was a little bit of a bump up. I think the best thing to attribute this to is we've got a lot of questions going on about and uncertainty related to political policies that may be happening in the market today. We may be seeing some of these impacts of tariffs starting to kick in that have gone on between the US and China, and the potential of some additional tariffs that may be coming into the picture as part of this. So in fact, in a recent poll done by BizBuySell, 43% of all business owners are facing rising costs due to these tariffs on Chinese goods. Now, the good news as part of this, even though we may be down, if you look at our transactions that occurred in Q1 and Q2 of 2019, we are still at a higher rate than we were in 2017, and still better off than we were in Q4 of 2014. So the numbers may be down just a little bit, but again, we're still seeing very good and very solid numbers when compared over the last 4 years of working with that. Of those businesses that sold in 2017, we go back to these because it's the most recent information we have on the details of these. But in 2017, 58% of those sales were attributed to baby boomers. 48% of those, 48% of those that sold during that same time period sold because they are planning on retiring. 25% of those sold because they are looking at pursuing a new venture, or looking at selling their business and want to start a new business, or off doing some other great idea as part of that. We are getting ready to see what's called the silver tsunami begin to hit us in the business sales arena, and that is a large portion of today's businesses are owned by baby boomers. And for many of them, they are looking at getting ready to exit that market and either to sell or transition out of those businesses. And so we're going to see these numbers continue to increase over the next number of years because now they're in a better opportunity to be able to do that. As far as sales go and the asking price and the sales price of that, this is another area of great news that's going on. If you look at the businesses that sold in the second quarter of 2019, they closed for a record high median sales price This is about a 13% jump from the same quarter in 2018, when that median price stood at about $225,000. So you'll notice a little bit of discrepancy there between asking price and sales price. We, of course, expect to see some little bit of difference there. So again, part of those numbers coming back up again is we're seeing improved financials. We're seeing again where those prices began to drop off. I think we're seeing a little bit more faith in the economy, a little bit more stability going on in some areas. And again, we're not necessarily surprised that the mean asking price for businesses went up. Again, that price went up over 2018 as well. Asking price averaged out at about $299,000. So anyway, not only are we looking at things from the standpoint of the business's financial stability, but we're also seeing that buyers appear to be more than willing to pay a premium for proven businesses when that bottom line continues to support success. So again, we're seeing some confidence on both sides here, both on the buyers and the sellers. Now, on the types of businesses that are being sold, as you can see here, the #1 business sector that continues to lead quarter after quarter continues to be the service industry. Now, followed right behind that, of course, is going to be retail, both the restaurant industry and other retail as part of that, followed by other. Manufacturing businesses are not selling quite so high at this time. But again, those numbers are staying fairly consistent as far as this goes, but we are seeing growth in each of those. The service-oriented businesses had about a 17% increase in revenue this year, which allowed those owners to sell their businesses for about 22% more than they did at the same time last year. Retail businesses are seeing about the same increase. They are only those seeing about a 5% increase in the retail price or in the sales price of those businesses. And again, the retail restaurants are seeing those same numbers along the way there. So anyway, so again, this is just to kind of give you there a little bit of a background and a state of what's going on. What are we looking at as far as those sales prices go, and what businesses typically being sold. So what we're here today to now is talk about is you have interest in possibly gathering more information about how do I sell my business? How do I exit out of my business today? Now, lots of you who are attending may have different reasons of why you're wanting to sell, and all of those reasons, for whatever they are important to you. Some of the most common reasons that businesses that people are wanting to sell their business, of course, the #1 reason is retirement. When the time comes that you want to leave the world of work behind, there's nobody suitable or willing to take over your business, nobody in the family that you want to transfer that to. The best option for you then is to sell out. The nice benefit of selling in regards to retirement is that you probably have an idea of when you want to retire. So that then gives you ample opportunity and ample time in order to plan that exit strategy. The second reason that we see businesses, owners wanting to exit out of their businesses, unfortunately have to do because of the health of the owners. There may come a time when your health may simply not allow you to be able to continue to run your business. A lot of businesses can put their success down to the hard work and dedication of the owner. But once that owner is unable to continue taking that active role in the operations, the business may suffer. And so before the business suffers too far, where we cannot retrieve that back into profitability, it may be important for us to try and sell that as quickly as possible. So when we consider exit plans for businesses, we want to develop an exit plan before we get into an emergency situation or a health situation, so that we can have those plans and those exit strategies in place before we get to that state. Another reason that businesses or the owners want to exit their businesses is maybe they just want to do something different. They've had enough of running a business. Maybe they want to try their hand at doing something completely different. As you all know, running a business is often time and very labor intensive. And so there may come a point when you either need to take a break, maybe a permanent break from the business. Maybe it's temporary break. We'll talk about that a little bit later as an exit strategy. when you may be ready to do something different there. So again, we don't want you to feel like you're strapped into these businesses. There's plenty of time to go off and do something different in your life if that's something that you want to do. Maybe along that same vein, maybe you have found something that's more profitable or more enjoyable that you want to focus on. If the opportunity comes along of something that's more financially rewarding, then maybe it's the case that you decide you want to focus your attention on that new venture. And if you're unable to dedicate your energies to your current business, maybe it's time to look at selling that or passing that on to somebody who can give it the time and the effort required as part of that. Maybe the current owners or maybe yourselves have taken that business as far as you can. Sometimes a business can only grow to a level that the owners or that the founders of the company feel that they can take it to. Maybe they can't do any more with it. For a successful business, maybe to continue to thrive, it may need to become part of a bigger group with more resources, or maybe it needs to be handed off to somebody who has more of a current state of mind or is willing to take it into the current state of technology, current state of resources, or who has the financial ability to be able to take it into the next level as part of that. Another reason why people want to exit their businesses, they may see a decline in profitability coming. It's only natural that if you feel that your business may have reached that peak of its profitability, then you may want to get out before that decline starts. Every business has a life cycle, and we may be at that peak or at that maturation point for that business, and you may not want to do what is needed in order to take it into a new growth cycle. And therefore, it's common reason for selling a business. And so we may need to, and actually I would advise you to keep a close eye on your industry and on your business. Always understand where you are in the life cycle of that business, and do your due diligence and find out where those opportunities may be to be able to sell that before that decline happens to kick in on that. The next reason is that a business may have reached a value that's going to support a future lifestyle, and you're just ready to cash it in. Maybe it's been successful. It has a healthy valuation attached to it. Maybe it's time that you want to release that money out now and sell that business. This could allow you now to be able to go on and maybe do a future business venture. Maybe it's going to allow you to retire, or maybe it's just you're just going to put this away as a nest egg to take care of yourselves in the future for a little bit more stable retirement plan later on. So whatever that might be, maybe you're at that point and you know exactly where the business is, and it's time to just sell and maximize your return on that initial investment. And finally, people typically want to exit a business because they have concerns about industry changes. Now, industry changes come because of potential legislation that may be brought in. It may be a general regional downturn or a national downturn. There may be political factors that may fall into that. It may be local economic issues that are happening. I know in our area, we're very dependent upon copper. And when we see a downturn in copper prices, overall industry all the way across the board in this area has a downturn. Again, we want to make sure that you're doing your research about your industry. You want to keep up to date on what's happening legislatively, what's going on regionally, what may be happening, that you can do your thorough research and know exactly what's going on. So when that opportunity comes up. On the opposite side of this, buyers also need to make sure that they're conducting thorough research before purchasing a business as a going concern, to ensure that they're not purchasing something that's getting ready to go into an economic downturn as part of that. So let's talk about the ways that we exit out of businesses. Now there's 4 different options that you have. We'll go through each of these in a little bit more detail as we continue through this seminar. Those 4 options are, number 1, strictly closing the business down. The second option, of course, is selling your business. We'll get in more into detail there. We'll talk more about transferring your business. And these may be some new concepts that maybe you haven't thought about transferring that business, either permanently, gradually, or doing a lease type of a situation and stepping out for a period of time. And then as a last resort strategy, bankruptcy or liquidation might be the only option available to you if the other three have not been able to come to fruition for you. So let's talk about each of these in depth for just a little bit of time. Let's talk about closing your business. Now, closing your business can be a very difficult choice to make. We always recommend that before you make a decision like that, it's always important to seek advice from your lawyer, any business evaluation experts such as SBDCs or business valuations, certified business valuation experts, other professionals such as accountants, bankers, even visiting with the IRS and discussing that with them on what are the best ways to do that. So let's talk about the steps that you're going to want to go through and making this decision and seeing it through to closure. The first step, of course, is making that decision to close. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, of course, you can make that decision on your own. But if you are any other type of partnership, this is going to require the co-owners of that business to agree. Now, hopefully in your articles of organization or in your partnership agreements or in your operating agreements, you have already documented what that closure process is going to look like. Are we closing the business? Are we selling your proceeds out to another owner? What does the definition of closing look like within that? We want to follow those articles of organization, those operating agreements, those partnership agreements, so that we're making sure that we're doing things legally and the way that was predefined by all of the stakeholders or shareholders of that organization. The second thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we file the dissolution documents that are going to be required. Now, if you are an LLC or a corporation with whatever state that you're registered in, there will be necessary steps that you will want to take to dissolve that organization. It may be simple dissolution papers that verify that you've taken care of all legal and financial responsibilities to dissolve that organization. But we want to make sure that those get taken care of in a timely manner, or you could be exposed to continued taxes and continued filing requirements based upon the organization structure that you have chosen. We also want to make sure that we cancel out any business registrations, any permits, licenses, business names that come or are in association with your business. We want to make sure that we're protecting your finances, and we want to make sure that we're protecting your reputation by canceling any of these things that you no longer need, including your trade name. Now, you may want to hang on to that name for a period of time, and you can go ahead and continue to do that by having that registered either as a trade name or continuing the name and protecting that in whatever way that you want to do that. We also want to make sure that we're complying with employment and labor laws. Now, there is a notification act. It's called the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act that walks you through employee payments after closing, along with all of the other federal and state laws that you need to comply with, making sure that all of the final payroll taxes have been paid, the quarterly taxes. Have we taken care of other financial obligations as part of that? Especially when it comes to our employees, are there any benefit plans that need to be paid out? Are there any retirement plans that need to be taken care of, that need to be funded? Are we doing our own funding of those plans, and what do those payouts look like as part of that? We need to make sure that we're handling all of the final returns for our income taxes and our sales taxes. As part of this, if the business is not continuing, make sure to cancel your EIN or your employee identification number. Notify any federal or state agencies, and make sure that you follow the IRS checklist. Now, you can go to the IRS website at irs.gov, and you can access that checklist there. For those who pre-registered for this, we will be including that checklist with our email following up after this, that we will be sending you not only this webinar and a link to be able to review this later, but also that checklist will be included as part of that. Now, we also want to make sure that we're maintaining all records associated with the business. You may be legally required to maintain those tax and employment records among your other files for the business. We usually will guide organizations to keep those, or businesses to keep those records anywhere from 3 to 7 years. You will want to confirm that with your state filing for your taxes, for all of that, especially for the tax side of things, and that audits can come up to as long as 7 years out and maintaining those records. So let's make sure that we're hanging on to those in case anything does come up later on that we need to validate or to document for any audits that might pop up as part of that. So that's closing your business. Now, what if we want to sell the business itself? All right. Now, again, after careful consideration, maybe you want to go ahead and take the steps to sell the business rather than just closing that down. Now, again, sound planning is going to help to ensure that you cover all of those bases. The first thing that you want to do, though, with this, of course, is to make sure that you have a business valuation done to set that monetary value before you even begin marketing this to prospective buyers. Now, there are a number of ways that you can do that. You can seek out a certified business valuation expert. You can do a self-evaluation. I referenced BizBuySell earlier, and on their website, bizbuysell.com, you can go there and do a self-evaluation of the business. Now, again, this does not take into account a lot of things, but it's going to give you a general starting point of where you may want to begin those conversations to give you an idea of what the value of that business might be. Now, we want to make sure that that you are accurately valuing all property and real estate as well. We also meant to make sure that we're valuing any intangible assets, such as your brand, any intellectual property, patents that you might hold, anything that's, again, it could be a number of different things that we hold there as part of the intellectual property holdings of the organization. Customer information can also be of great value to the person who may be buying that business from you. We also want to take a look at the projection of all future revenues. Now, the projection of future revenues is typically based upon historic numbers. So if we have good historic numbers coming into the business, then we can better identify what that average growth rate is moving into the future, as well as identifying any additional opportunities or trends that may be increasing those revenues or a decrease in those revenues based upon what we talked about previously about the businesses themselves. Now, there are 3 different ways that we will typically value a business and trying to figure out how much is the business worth. And those 3 approaches are, number 1, the income approach. In this approach, we look at the projected revenue and the accounts for any potential risks that might be coming up in the future. So we're going to again take a look at what's happened historically. What have those growth rates been? Is there any normalization that we need to do? Are there any unreported incomes that haven't been reported there? Are there any additional expenses that have been in the business that we need to take out that a future business owner may not have to deal with? We're going to take a look at any risks or opportunities that may be coming up and then apply either discounts or premiums to that business that will either increase the value or decrease the value based upon those premiums or based upon those risks or those opportunities. Now, the next approach that we will take a look at is the market approach. The market approach compares your business to other businesses that have also recently sold. And when we compare those businesses, we try and compare those in a business size, meaning what were the total annual sales of a particular business? What are the markets that those are in? Are they in a smaller market? Are they in a larger market? We take a look and try and find as many commonalities between those businesses as yours to try and come up with a reasonable valuation that you and a potential buyer may agree on as part of that. And then finally, the last approach that we will take a look at is the asset approach of the business. In this approach, we subtract all of the total business liabilities from the total value of all the assets. Or in essence, we take out all of the debt. So we find out what the value is of all of your assets. We take out the debt that is still associated with those assets to come up with an asset valuation as part of this. Now, in doing business valuations, we will typically do a combination of these 3 to try and get some commonality or to get a good average based across all 3 of those. We use different approaches and different methods underneath these approaches based upon what kind of a business you are. If you are strictly a service-based business with no assets, then it would not make any sense for us to do an assets-based approach on this. Maybe you are heavy on assets, and so maybe we want to take an approach of the asset side of things and looking at that rather than looking at the market approach, because maybe nobody else in the market has sold with the number of assets that you're dealing with on that. So all of these valuation methods and all of these approaches are all based upon the type of industry or type of business that you're working with. And we try to come up with the best numbers possible to give you that best valuation. Now, one of the next things that we need to make sure that we do in the selling of a business, and that is coming up with a sales agreement. Now, this document, again, spells out all of the details of what's going to happen as part of that. And this is the agreement between the buyer and the seller. Now, you have to have a sales agreement in order to sell your business officially. All right. This allows for the purchases of any assets that may be inside there. It may also spell out what is the stock that's going to be sold as part of that. Now, regardless of whether you do it, whether you have a business expert do it, and SBDC help you do that, you always want to have an attorney review that to make sure that it's accurate and it's comprehensive and it's protecting both the buyer and the seller as part of that. In that agreement, you also want to make sure that you're listing all of the inventory in the sale, along with the names of the seller, the buyer, and the business. All right. We also want to fill in all of the background details. We want to, again, what other issues are going on that we need to make sure that are being considered as part of that on the back side of this. We want to make sure that in the case of the buyer, how is this business going to be run prior to closing? And also, what is the level of access that the buyer is going to have to your information until they actually take ownership of the business? Now, the last thing we want is for them to come in, you get ready to purchase the business, or they get ready to purchase the business, and you decide, yeah, I'm just going to lay everybody off and give them what they've got. There needs to be an expectation that the business is going to continue to be profitable and strive to be profitable, even up until the day that you sell that for the benefit of the buyer as part of that. Now, we also want to note any adjustments that are going to be made in the purchase of this. Are there any broker's fees? Are there any other aspects relevant to the terms of the agreement that we need to note in here as part of this? Is the buyer going to be taking a certain amount of the working capital? Are they going to be leaving any of the working capital in the bank to be able to continue to fund that business until the new owner can be able to cash flow that out underneath their new ownership process as part of that? And finally, we want to make sure that we've listed out all of the assets and all of the liabilities that are associated with this business. Now, especially in the case of liabilities, these need to be listed out, or this can create some significant problems even after the sale's been finalized, especially legal considerations that could invalidate the sale and then turn the sale of that business back over to the original owners due to that. So again, we want to make sure that everything is very comprehensive in these sales agreements, that everything has been spelled out, that we've noted all of those discrepancies, any adjustments that need to be made of what those expectations are going to be prior to that point. All right, so now let's talk about transferring ownership of a business. When we talk about transfer of ownership, we usually have three different scenarios that we talk through. We've already talked about the first one, and that's just the outright sale of the business. I've given you three scenarios here. And we look at this first one of the outright sale. Here we have Liz, who has a local clothing boutique, hasn't been doing really well. She's got other businesses on her plate and really can't afford to continue to run this one. And so she's just looking to get out of this and get the cash out of that as quickly as possible. The real benefit of just doing the outright sale is that you're basically transferring ownership immediately. You're getting that payment right off the bat and being able to just walk away and not have to continue to work with that moving forward. Now, we have two other options when we talk about the transfer of ownership, and that is a gradual sale and a lease agreement. When we talk about gradual sales, we're talking about, many times we'll call it an owner carry. So in this situation, here we have Bill. Bill has a small market near his house, and after the birth of his granddaughter, he now wants to go spend time at his daughter's home several hours away. Now, those of you who are grandparents understand that. We get that. We don't want to be at work. We want to be playing with grandkids as much as we can. But after transferring, so Bill wants to just transfer the business ownership, but he doesn't have to worry now about running his business day to day, but he's still receiving then that monthly income. All right. The nice thing is with this is that Bill is in a position where he can fund the transfer of that business. So he's going to take a monthly payment on that. They're going to negotiate a long-term payment plan on that. Bill still has now a monthly income coming in, and the sale becomes gradual for the process of transferring that business over. You can either fully transfer over the ownership with of course, a default. If they default on the loan, that you take ownership of that, or we can now start to work out a percentage ownership of this, where in the beginning still maintains ownership of a high percentage, and then as they begin to pay that down, that percentage drops down until we have a gradual and complete ownership by the new owners. Now, the last option we have might be something that might be brand new to you, and this is a lease agreement, not a lease to own, but a lease agreement on a business. So in this situation, Barbara's decided to take a year-long cruise around the world. Now, how nice would that be? To just take a year break, like a sabbatical, and just leave your business. But she owns a daycare center, and she doesn't want to necessarily get rid of it, but she's decided to transfer the ownership of that to a friend during the course of that lease. Now, the nice thing is that when she transfers that through a lease, she's committing to a contract that details out all the conditions and all the payments that she's going to receive for the temporary rights to the business. So when she returns back, the lease is up. She then takes control back of the business again, or she can move into, if she decides at that point to move into a gradual sale or an owner carry, and then can transition that business on to the new owner. Now, all of these can be combined in a number of different ways. They don't have to be all one or the other. As we work with small businesses, both in the purchasing and the selling of these, we work in a lot of different scenarios in how we work with these. So sometimes we just have to get creative in how we're going to make these things work. All right, our final exiting of a business we want to talk about, as we mentioned before, is bankruptcy or liquidation. Now again, the liquidating or bankruptcy is usually going to be a last resort strategy. If we have had no buyers, no merges, no successors that have appeared out on the horizon somewhere, this now moves us into a process of just redistributing those assets out to any creditors that we have, shareholders, stakeholders. If this is a strategy that we're going to go into, we absolutely have to have a sound plan of action. So before we just start to sell everything off, we need to start visiting first off with our attorneys and our accountants. All right. So don't go terminate leases. Don't go start selling equipment or disconnecting utilities. Go and visit with an attorney. Go visit with your accountant and develop a plan that you can present to creditors in the situation of a bankruptcy. If it is just a liquidation of everything, we want to put that off. We want to sit down and figure out what those implications are going to look like. We're going to need the cooperation of any creditors, stakeholders, shareholders, anybody who has a vested interest in this business. We need to make sure that we're presenting a plan to them of how this is going to look and how they're going to get their money back at the end of this. Now, we also want to make sure that we're staying up to date on all of our filing requirements and our taxes. Again, we don't want any of that coming back and catching us later. We want to make sure that we've taken care of all those, so that does not complicate this process as part of that. We also know that there are going to be implications for your employees on your assets, on tax obligations. Again, especially in a forced exit situation, there's implications on all of those. So we always recommend that you, again, are having those conversations with your accountants and your attorneys, making sure that we're meeting those requirements that we're going to have as part of that. Now, for those who are looking at more of the bankruptcy side of things, there is an IRS bankruptcy tax guide. Again, you can get that from irs.gov online. And it contains all kinds of information of things that you need to consider on bankruptcy, specifically in the areas of debt cancellation. How do we get rid of that? What are the tax procedures that we need to go through? It also gives you what are the considerations that you need to keep in mind for the different types of business structures. Are LLCs any different than corporations, and how are those different than an LLC? If we're using a C Corp versus an S Corp, what are the impacts of those on stakeholders and shareholders? Where do our creditors fall into all of this? All right, so that is a great guide. And so I reference that to you, to something for you to be able to go back and take a look at. Now, if we're looking at, again, we're looking at getting more into the liquidation side of things. All right, there's a number of steps that we need to go through in preparing for a liquidation of the assets. The first thing is we need to prepare an inventory and determine which assets we're going to be selling. As part of that, we need to make sure that we're also securing that inventory and assets. When we get into these situations and now we're starting to lock things up and people know that, hey, we're shutting down, it's not uncommon for inventory to begin to walk away, for assets to disappear, because then people just think, well, we're not going to need this anymore, so therefore stuff just disappears. Make sure that everything has been secured, especially if we are liquidating the information, or liquidating the assets as part of a bankruptcy. There are going to be attorneys and all kinds of people involved in this, and if assets or merchandise begins to disappear, there will be a lot of questions that are coming to come back later on to that. So make sure that we are securing all of that. We then need to sit down and set a liquidation value of all of the assets with a qualified appraiser. Now, when I say qualified appraiser, we're typically not talking about your average home appraiser. We are talking about certified asset appraisers, business appraisers. Many times they are industry specific and are coming in and doing specific appraisals or evaluations of those assets that you have. Now, once they've done that, I want you to take all of the value of that to estimate what do we expect the proceeds of this sale to be, the net sale proceeds, because there are going to be expenses as part of this, and then sit back and reevaluate your decision. Is this the right thing for me to do? Am I going to maximize my return on this? How can I get the most money out of this? And is this going to get, am I going to get out of this what I really need to get out of this, for whether for the bankruptcy or for the liquidation of the business itself? And then reevaluate that decision. You may decide you may need to back up and do something differently as part of this. So we always want there to be a stop, evaluate, see where you're at. Is this going to meet the overall objective of this? And if it does, then maybe you move forward. Now, if you do decide to move forward, then we need to decide what type of sale am I going to do? Am I going to do a negotiated sale? Someone comes in, we negotiate and handle on a price, whether it's everything all together or in one big monster like a bulk sale, or are we going to go through this asset by asset and negotiate that with those buyers that come in? Are we going to go on consignment, where we're just going to turn everything over to a seller, a broker, a dealer, and let them sell it? They're going to take then their fees out of that, and we get the cash back at the end. Or are we going to sell this on the internet? Now, there are all kinds of auction sites available online that we can do this, and I'm not necessarily talking about eBay, but there are online auction sites where you can go that are more industry specific, that are more business related rather than the retail side that eBay typically focuses on. But we can sell those online, and again, get a larger group of eyes looking at that rather than just our regional or our local potential buyers as part of that. We may want to consider sealed bids as part of this. And now we're going to take a bid on everybody, and we take the highest bid. Or maybe we just want to turn this over and turn it into a retail scenario. And now we're just going to sell it outright out of the business. And as it sells, and we'll take the money then from that point as part of that. Now, before we get to that, you're also going to want to consider when is the best time and the location for that sale. If you're in rural areas, it may be better to take all of this to an area where you have more eyes seeing this. If you're dealing with an auctioneer or a dealer, they may transfer all of this to their location for the auction or for the sale of that. Again, we want to determine when is the best time to do that. Where is the best location for that to happen? Now, we've talked about auctioneers and dealers and brokers a little bit before already, but again, which one of those is going to be best for you to sell those assets? Do we need to work with an auctioneer and have them come in and sell that? All of these have fees and costs associated with these. So you're going to want to research all of that. Are there other experts that can come in and conduct that for us? Again, do your homework and identify what's the best way for that. And finally, make sure that you're using a non-recourse bill of sale. So if a buyer purchases an asset, they are also accepting the associated risk as part of that. Once these are sold, especially in a liquidation situation, this is designed to get things sold and to get out, to pay off creditors. We don't want any fallback to come back from this later on. So there needs to be full disclosure on all assets of the issues that you might be aware of, and making sure that they are aware that they are going to be issued a non-recourse bill of sale, or a you buy it as is, as part of that. Again, we're trying to minimize any long-term ramifications that may come back on any of that has been sold. So we've basically discussed all 4 of the different options you have of exiting out of your business. Now, for all of those who attended today and those of you who have participated with us, I just wanted to let you know we're going to be sending you out, when we send this, the link out to this, we're also going to be sending you out a copy of the Guide to Selling Your Small Business. Biz by Sell has been I call them a partner of ours with the SBDC for a number of years, and they have always been so good to provide this guide to us and to our clients, for those who may be thinking of selling that. So we'll be including this in our email out to you. It'll come in PDF format. You're welcome to print that, review it, share that. They want to get this in as many hands as possible to help people understand what, number one, what buyers are looking for, and what are the things that I need to do to be successful in the sale of that business. Now, as I mentioned, we have SBDCs all across the state of Arizona, all across the nation. So if you have any questions, if you need more information or have more details on what we've gone over today, we want you to feel free to reach out to us. Our phone number's there, our email address, our website, our Facebook page. Feel free to give us a call. We're happy to answer those questions. If you're outside of our area, please contact us, and we'd be more than happy to get you in contact with an SBDC in those outlying areas. So it doesn't look like we have any questions. We've got some thank yous that have popped up as part of that. We thank you for those who posted that. We appreciate you participating in with this today. Looks like we have a question that came in from Stacy. The question that came in there was, do we have to transfer any licenses or permits if we sell a business, and do we need to transfer the EIN? So excellent question, and it's one that we get a lot when we see transfers of businesses. So typically when we do, let's talk about the EIN first. When we sell a business, as all of you know who have EINs, those are associated with your tax ID numbers, or I'm sorry, with your social security numbers. So when we sell a business, we're going to require the new business to get their new EIN number. We're going to associate that business with them. Now, in the application for getting an EIN, we select, or we let the IRS know that you are purchasing an existing business. So when they see the same name come through from the same area, but with a different person, they will know then that this has been purchased, and this is now associated with the new EIN or the new social security number on the backside as part of that. Now, the second question here now is going to come in regarding permits, licenses, and those kinds of things. There may be some industry licenses that may have to be transferred over. In the case of a construction company, we'll need to make sure that we're operating now underneath the, and that person will need to make sure that they have their contractor's license or whatever industry specific licenses that they have. Business licenses will typically just carry over with the business, and those will be renewed when they expire, typically at the end of the calendar year or within the year that was purchased. So we can just make that change over. Sales tax licenses, LLCs, those types of things, There are some paperwork that will need to be done to get that into the name of the new owners, the new managers, the new members, putting the TPT and now underneath the new EIN as part of all of that. So there are some situations that we need to transfer and some that we don't. So we always want to consider what those specifics might be as part of all of that. So anyway, excellent question. Again, I think that's a great one, and we will start to include that in this presentation moving forward in the future of some additional considerations. So again, I want to thank you all for participating with us today. We look forward to working with you more. Keep your eyes open. We will be sending you emails on future webinars that we will be holding. Also, if there are other webinars that you would like us to do, that again, you can participate in from your offices, from your homes, from your couches, wherever you're participating from, let us know what you would like us to discuss more in these, or what webinars would be of most benefit and helpful to you. Or as always, if you'd like to sit down with us on a one-on-one situation, we'd be more than happy to sit down and to do that with you. So once again, we appreciate all of you participating with us today, and we look forward to seeing you guys again at our next webinar.